Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Joanne. I am a mum of 3 children and I home educate those 3 children here in the UK. Today I wanted to talk about our plans for the 2026-2027 school year for my eldest son, who is 11, almost 12. This son is incredibly creative. He loves things like science, technology, art, design. He's really interested in animatronics and horology. He is a very keen reader and he's been home educated now for almost 6.5 years because he came out halfway through his reception year due to COVID, but we didn't register him until the beginning of his year 1. Our children are self-directed learners. For this age group, that means that they spend a lot of their day doing self-chosen projects. I can't say what those projects will be for the next year or even the next few months because they are completely directed by my son. My role is to support that in any way needed. So sometimes that means giving him plenty of time and space and stepping back, and other times that's more of an active role, providing him with resources, helping him to problem solve, or just being someone to bounce ideas off of. I can suggest different ways of seeing things, or I can link him to information that I think he might be interested in. You'll see in this video, as an unschooling family, we do still use some resources that are also used in more traditional homeschool. We do use those resources probably a little bit differently than they are meant to be used. We sort of take from them what we need and what we like, and then we leave the rest, or I put them as an offer for my children to do. My children are very open and receptive to the learning opportunities that I offer them, and we talk regularly about what they are happy with and what they are not happy with, what they'd like more or less of. And so I'm very satisfied that the things I'm offering this school year are things that my children currently enjoy. We don't actually do sort of school years in the traditional sense. We don't have like term times and non-term times. We just live our day-to-day life, and these things have become a habit for us to do as a family. This son is at the age that he would be starting secondary school, and I'm aware of that, and I've spoken to him about what he may like to do in the future, and that is why he's happy to do some sort of English and maths so that he has those basic skills in order to take maybe functional skills or GCSEs or whatever he needs to get on to the next part of his education when he has done with his home education. That being said, we don't separate our life up into subjects, but obviously for the sake of this video, I do need to separate things a little bit. So I'm going to talk about English, and I'm going to talk about maths, and I'm going to then discuss the things that my son is really into. Everything else that would be covered in school is more covered in our symposium time. I like to read aloud to my children about all different kinds of things, and also obviously we go out into the big wide world and do workshops and museums and that sort of stuff to introduce my children to other principles that they may not have shown an interest in or may not know about by themselves. So as I mentioned, this son really enjoys reading, and so that is a great way for us to promote learning in our home. We go to the library regularly, and I also just have an array of books around the house. We also have a subscription to The Week Junior and to Science and Nature magazine. This son really enjoys reading non-fiction in particular, and so that's a big way that he has increased his reading fluency over the years, but it's also a way that he learns a lot about the world in general. My children and I have a one-on-one time during the day, and during that time sometimes they suggest activities, sometimes I suggest activities. So I have got a couple of resources that are going to help me with writing prompts for this son. So the first resource is the CGP Entry-Level Functional Skills English. That has some bits in for reading, which we're not really interested in, but it also has some writing prompts, which I am interested in. On that note, I'm also interested in having my son do some like day-to-day writing. So when things come up, like emails need to be sent, things like that, I'm going to ask him to help me with those. The second resource I'm going to use to help me is a creative writing book for children, I think ages 7 to 14. So I think we'll take some of the prompts out of there as well. I will tailor them to my son's interests, and I also encourage him to write about his interests. This son really loves to deep dive into projects and research things quite thoroughly, and so that shouldn't be too difficult. My son enjoyed learning typing with typing.com last year. He did enough lessons to earn his beginner certificate. I wondered if he might be interested in doing his intermediate certificate this year, but that's probably something I'm going to have to remind him about. And so I will probably do that in the winter when the weather's worse and the kids aren't out as much. Then there's more time for doing things indoors. As I mentioned at the beginning, my son enjoys coding. He has a microbit, so I'll probably put that out as like an option of things to do. The microbit is really good because you can go onto a website called Make Code and you can make this little microbit light up in different ways. You can make it do different things, like you can make it a step counter or a timer or respond to shaking it with like a funny face, things like that. And so my sons, both of them, have their own microbit each and they really enjoy coding that. That brings us to our symposium time. So family symposium time is a time of day when we get in a lot of learning. We do it right before bed. It takes about an hour. What we usually do is we memorize some poetry, hadith, Quran, things like that. So memorizing poetry, I feel like, is great for English, and also reciting back the poetry. I feel like that brings in some public speaking skills. Other things we do at that time of the evening is Fix It Grammar. So I bought Fix It Grammar for my middle son, but actually I've ended up using level 1 with this son, my eldest son, and he's getting on really well with it. You just take like a sentence or two a night and then you identify the different parts of speech in there that they ask you to identify, and also often there's some punctuation mistakes like missing capital letters, missing end punctuation, etc, etc. And so just doing like one sentence like maybe 3 times a week takes honestly a few minutes, and he's very happy to do that. And so we will progress on to level 3. I'm going to skip level 2 because he's really confident in what he's doing there. Fix It Grammar, which is published by IEW, which is the Institute for Excellence in Writing. They also provide some copy work, which I probably won't have my son do, and also a vocabulary word. Now this son, because he is so widely read, really is usually great with the vocabulary words, like he already knows them. So if he knows them, then I will go down to my middle child and check if he knows what the word means, and then down to my younger child, check that she knows what it means. And if anyone is unsure of the meaning of a word, then we will look it up in the dictionary. I'll have it right there by me, and that will be our like vocabulary word for the next day. We also play games, do picture studies, things like that during that sort of time. And then we go into about 45 minutes of reading. I tend to read aloud to the children, or we listen to an audiobook, or usually actually a mixture of both. I read something that I have chosen. That is where I bring in some non-fiction, people from history, science, inventions, stories from different places around the world, different time periods in history, all of that sort of stuff. And then I read something for my daughter, who usually chooses like a short story or a picture book. And then my sons have graduated onto more chapter books. So last year we read through the whole Harry Potter series. We've also read through several of the books from the Chronicles of Narnia. The year before that we read through the Famous Five series. We just love like classic literature, and so we will continue to do that. And after we read through books, we don't tend to do any formal narration, but we always discuss what we're reading. That helps me to be reassured that they are comprehending what I'm reading aloud. And also, as they get older, it brings in a little bit of debate, which I feel is good. Obviously, as they get older, we're going through more complex subjects, and that's a really fun way to promote like speaking and listening skills in your kids. Moving on to maths, that is something we also do in the evening. I just take questions from some revision cards. I've been doing this lately. I've actually got the cards to show you here. These are not the ones that I'm going to be using next year. These are some like year 6 level maths cards, but I'm going to use a similar style of revision card for functional skills level 3 entry level maths. They are made by CGP, and so I just take a few questions, like this card's got 4 questions, and ask my son to answer them, and that helps me identify if there's any gaps in his maths knowledge. We are also going to have the year 7 CGP maths book, And then if I do identify any gaps, then I will address that during our one-on-one time. I will probably use Twinkle to help fill in any gaps. Twinkle have a range of activities. Just a few months ago, actually, we downloaded a algebra game that was really handy, and it taught my son the concept that he needed to know without me directly teaching it, if that makes sense. And it was just like a fun game that we did together. Along the same lines, during our one-on-one time, sometimes, or quite often actually, we do logic puzzles together. I do have a workbook from a company called Bond, I believe, and it's a verbal reasoning workbook that children usually do in order to prepare for their 11+ exam. We just really enjoy doing the little puzzles that are in there, and so I think we will carry on doing that. I may get the non-verbal reasoning book as well in the future once we've gone through this one. We also spend a lot of time doing logic puzzles like Sudoku and things on the New York Times app. That's just a really enjoyable way for us to spend time together, really. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this son is really into art and science, and so I want to make sure that he has lots of opportunity to explore those interests this year, and I want to be very purposeful about that. So in terms of artwork, we already do artist study as part of our symposium time. I'm also going to try and getting some day trips that involve art, so maybe some visits to different galleries. This son really appreciates architecture and animatronics, that sort of thing. And so I will check with him and see if he has any ideas for trips that we could make, things that he would like to see. On a day-to-day basis, I just want to make sure that we keep our art room well stocked with some really good art materials so that he can explore things like watercolouring. We have chalk pastels, oil pastels, poster paints. He has access to a hot glue gun and he loves to craft using cardboard. He's got some Lego motors. We just bought some really good felt tip pens because our old set, like some had gone missing and some were drying out. And yeah, just pencils, all the basic things like that. But I want him to be able to explore that as much as he can. And then for science, I'm going to do what I've done previous years, which is routinely put out experiments and science activities. I have some of the Janice Van Cleve books and they have suggestions for different science experiments. And I've had a lot of luck in the past just putting out the book open to a certain page with the resources needed to do the experiments on that page, and my son usually takes to it. I have got a little list of Key Stage 3 ideas, like topics that are covered throughout Key Stage 3 that I would like my son to be introduced to over the next few years, and so I will be purposely looking for experiments and activities that help with that. In December, we purchased a Wonderlab ticket. It's an annual ticket. That's for the Wonderlab in London Science Museum. I would like to return there at least a few times this year. It's excellent. They've got so many things there. The children can just explore whatever interests them. There are these paid staff there. They're called explainers, I think, and they'll just come up as the children are doing different experiments and ask them if they want any help or if they want to understand the concept behind why something works the way it does. Pretty much next door to the Science Museum in London is the Natural History Museum. My kids particularly love the Restless Surface exhibit, which is on the top floor there. That's all about earthquakes and tectonic plates, and they love going there as well. And so I want to do several purposeful trips there on top of the experiments activities. He also loves using the tools that we have in the kitchen to take things apart and see how they work, which obviously he can only do with certain things that he has permission to open up. But that's the type of stuff he really enjoys doing by himself. And I just want to provide as many resources as I can for doing that. If you have any questions about anything we're using, then please drop it in the comments below. I will try and link things that I've mentioned in the description box. And until next time, happy homeschooling. Take care.